You can no longer farm. You can no longer fish. Poverty has come. You cannot have money to go and buy water. So you have no choice, if you are thirsty, than to drink the polluted water that is in our well.
Trekking long distances to fetch water is a common experience for people living in Africa's arid and semi-arid areas. Weirdly, it's also an everyday reality for people of Ogoniland in Nigeria's Delta state, a tropical rainforest region that experiences high rainfall annually and surrounded by all-season rivers. But decades of oil spills and pollution mean the people must bear the extra burden of searching for safe drinking water from cleaner sources. Some communities still drink from polluted sources, leading to chronic illnesses such as cancer, kidney disease, and skin rashes. Their livelihoods have been destroyed as they can no longer fish or farm their polluted land. A process of cleaning up the spills has been painfully slow, and so today I ask, will plans by the Nigerian government to resume crude oil production in Ogoniland take off? I'm Alan Kasujja, and this is Africa Daily. It's been 3 decades since he was executed by the Nigerian military government for leading protests against environmental pollution caused by oil exploration. But Ken Saro-Wiwa remains a global icon of resistance against environmental degradation. The campaigns he led saw exploration of oil in his Ogoniland stopped because of spills which had heavily polluted water and soil and destroyed livelihoods. A United Nations Environmental Programme report in 2011 painted a picture of the damage the spills had caused and recommended a cleanup. Not much has changed since then, though, because the cleanup process has been very slow. Nigerian President Bola Tinubu recently announced that his government would begin negotiations to resume oil production in Ogoniland. This sparked protests from environmental rights groups. I'll be talking to a lawyer and environmental campaigner from Ogoniland, Celestine Akpobari. But first, I spoke to local journalist Ndume Green on how the resistance to oil exploration compares to the days of Ken Saro-Wiwa.
There has been a voice of resistance on one side and another of acceptance on the other side. Of course, this area has been marred with issues of environmental degradation for over 6 decades. Oil was found here in 1958. Exploration started and took quite a long time until 30 years later when writer and environmentalist Ken Saro-Wiwa began to speak about it, and of course led to that sad incident which led to his death on the 10th of November 1995 under the regime of dictator General Sani Abacha. So the voices have not entirely changed. Some people are quite opposed that issues around oil exploration should be delayed, but there are people who feel we've waited enough and this thing should continue immediately.
Right. So what has changed over the years so that the government has announced plans to resume oil drilling in Ogoniland, despite all the grievances you talk about?
Subsequent years, there was a call for environmental impact assessment of Ogoniland, which was done by the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP. That report was published in 2011, which subsequently led to the establishment of a remediation agency called the Hydrocarbon Pollution Remediation Project in 2016 under the government of President Buhari. And so after then, there has been some sort of cleanup going on of polluted sites, which is called the Ogoni cleanup. Well, they've recorded some bit of success, especially under the leadership of the current project coordinator of the project, Professor Neni Barenezabe. But of course, there has also been arguments that they have not done enough and that the cleanup has not gone to a stage where these polluted lands have been remediated enough for oil resumption to begin. So that argument is there. So that is what has changed over the years. The cleanup activities came with not just remediation activities. It came with the demand for the provision of potable drinking water, the demand for the restoration of livelihood of the Ogoni people, because their livelihoods has over the years been destroyed by activities of oil exploration, which led to degradation. Right.
So, more than 20 Nigerian environmental and rights groups have expressed concern over the plan by government to resume crude oil production in the Niger Delta. What exactly are they saying?
Well, we've had a lot of voices, a lot of interviews. For example, one of the most dominant voices that has been at the forefront of agitation in Ogoni has been the movement for the survival of Ogoni people, which was founded by the late Ken Saro-Wiwa. That organization currently is facing leadership challenge because there have been several factions of people claiming leadership. It has deprived the Ogoni people of having a united voice with regards to their opinion about this. But other organizations have come up to say no, they will resist this. Some of the organizations feel that cleanup has not been sufficient enough for exploration to begin. And some of them also believe that the oil should be left in the ground, that there has been a lot of environmental degradation over the years that the oil companies have not paid attention to. And why are they coming back to explore oil again? And people feel that the cleanup process should be entirely completed. The UNEP report stated that the first phase of environmental remediation in Ogoni will take over 30 years. They've been 7 years into that project. So why do you want to hurriedly come in now and start exploration when they have not even exhausted a decade in the cleanup process?
So I wonder if those voices, those groups, pose any threat at all to the plans by the government, and what might happen if the government went ahead with plans of exploration with things as they are at the moment?
Yes, absolutely. Those voices pose a great threat because campaigns around environmental degradation and oil exploration in Ogoni are quite intense because of the very sad experiences that the Ogoni people have had. And most of the activists involved are not small voices that the government will want to just put them aside and proceed, with coming to explore oil. And there are oil pipelines, running crisscrossing communities across Ogoni. There is no way that, these oil companies can come in and begin exploration without, interacting with the communities, negotiating with the communities. And of course, they are going to meet, strong opposition by these campaigns against exploration, and they are very strong voices.
Right. And are they a unified voice? Is everybody in Ogoni land in the Niger Delta on the same page? Are they all reading off the same script?
Not at all. Not at all. Not everyone is on the same page. There is a vast amount of people who feel that over the years there have been issues of unemployment that has led to crime. And so if there is oil exploration going on, it will be an opportunity for young graduates to have access to jobs. And of course, the Ogoni area, which has the largest population in Rivers State, which is a state in the Niger Delta, has been politically marginalized. And issues of oil too has played a critical role in this marginalization. Other tribes in the state have felt, why should Ogoni have political power to produce a governor, to produce a chief judge, to produce a deputy governor when their oil is already in the ground and nobody is touching it? Whose resources are they going to use to govern the state? So those issues around political considerations are very strong, points too, that most people in Ogoni feel, well, if they leave the oil exploration to kick off, it will be a ground, for them to have access to political power.
And finally, briefly, if you can, who has the greater leverage at this point? Is it the government or those opposed to the project?
Well, the people opposed to the project are quite high because these are strong voices. These are very renowned activists in the area. A lot of very prominent, strong voices have opposed the resumption of oil. But of course, government have set up a committee. There was a meeting of over 50 Ogoni people with the president, where at that meeting, they nominated a 3-member negotiation committee to interface between government and the Ogoni people. And of course, these people are prominent Ogoni leaders, prominent academicians, and prominent people who have achieved things, in their different careers and areas. So I understand that there is a strategy, there is a plan to begin a sort of a town hall and engagement meeting to begin to engage the Ogoni people. Of course, it's not an area that is known to accept force, and the government knows this. The Nigerian government knows that the Ogoni area has always resisted force. They resisted them during the military, and this is a civilian rule. It will not be a different case. So it is only dialogue that will allow them an entry into that place, and that is what the government is doing. But I tell you that it's a very long road ahead. The journey, well, it's not going to be an easy one, because they have just started that process. They've not even begun engagement with the Ogoni people, and it's a long road, to be very honest.
You're listening to the BBC's Africa Daily podcast with me, Alan Kasujja. And today, I'm looking at plans by the Nigerian government to resume crude oil production in the restive Ogoniland in the Niger Delta. As you heard from journalist Ndume Green, it is going to be a long road ahead. I spoke to one of those campaigners, lawyer Celestine Akpobari, and asked what they want to see done.
We are at a loss as to why we can no longer farm and why we can no longer fish, and why the rich seafood delicacies we used to have, we don't have them anymore.
So what about the government of Nigeria? How do you view their position? We know that a university for environmental technology in Ogoniland has been approved by the president. That sounds like a good sign to me.
It sounds like a good sign to you. For me, I feel that government is trying to pay for the oil they stole from Ogoniland for over 3 decades, because they have not paid for the oil they took before. They have given Ogoni nothing in place of the devastation that we had. This is just like you take my shirt from me and you cut one button and give to me, and my shirt is still with you with all the other buttons. I will not clap hand for you for doing that.
Right. So you're saying that basically it's tokenism?
Yeah, it's tokenism. I said the government is complicit. The government operates a joint venture with the oil company. So whatever that happened to our land and the oil companies that did that, they are of the same coin. And it was the government that murdered Ken Saro-Wiwa and 8 others. It was the government that sent Okuntomo Obiumai, Dauda Musa Komo, other soldiers to invade Ogoni and killed over 2,000 persons in cold blood. It was the government. So in as much as I hate the oil companies, I hate the government the more.
Right. And is that a helpful position? Because that means you can't engage. You can't find similar ground.
No, definitely. Even in war situation, people engage. Why not? Some Ogoni stakeholders met with the government. That is engagement. I must not necessarily be there.
And as far as resistance is concerned, do you see any similarities between the fight that was led by Ken Saro-Wiwa in the 90s until he was killed in 1995? Do you see that fight as being similar at all to what's happening, that level of resistance? Do you still have it in Ogoniland?
Oh, it is no longer strong because there is deep divisions in Ogoni. Today we have about 5 different factions of MOSOP, Movement for the Survival of the Ogoni people. It was the vehicle that Ken Saro-Wiwa used in prosecuting the struggle. So when a movement is divided, it means that the people are also divided along that line. And we used to say that the people united can never be defeated. But you can't say that to people that are divided, So the people are divided now. The struggle is not as it used to be.
And what does that mean for the environment? What condition is the environment in at the moment?
Sure, poverty has been weaponized. It is dangerous for the environment that people can no longer stand up for the truth because they will look for food to eat, because poverty has been weaponized. So there are people like that who cannot stand hunger, and there are people that do not have integrity, that will do anything. So there are those who still have dignity and integrity who will say the right thing should be done.
There's a report that was released in 2011 by the United Nations Environmental Program, UNEP. And there was a study conducted which confirmed severe pollution and recommended urgent cleanup measures. What's that like at the moment? Are there cleanup measures? Has the place been cleaned up? What do you make of the findings of that report? Have those recommendations been taken up?
Well, I take the findings of that report as a death sentence on Ogoni people and Ogoni environment, because it says that there is hydrocarbon in the air we breathe. And it says that there is benzene, a cancer-causing carcinogen, in the water that we drink, and that the water we drink is 1,000 times worse, below the standard recommended by World Health Organization. That the recommendation of that report does not leave any surprise to me at all, because life has become so short that you meet somebody in the morning, in the afternoon, the person is dead, because the person inhale, he breathe in a poisonous air, he eat a poisonous food, he drink a poisonous water. So the whole system is choked and the person is dead. So life has become so short that I'm not surprised that life has become so short, because you cannot have that kind of recommendations of an environment and you think that people that live in that environment are normal human beings.
Tell me a bit more about that, how the pollution is affecting local communities, including health and livelihoods.
Yeah, definitely. We live on herbs, traditional medicine. But these things no longer grow in our forest because our land is dead, according to that report. So you no longer have herbs, and there is a total absence of medication because there is a total absence of government in the area. So it is money you get from your fishing and farming, being a predominantly fishing and farming community. It is the money we get from our business that we use to take care of our people when they are sick or send our children to school. But now you can no longer farm, you can no longer fish. Poverty has come. And so you can't take care of your person when the person is sick. And you cannot get the local herbs from the forest because the forest is dead. So everything is chaotic. You cannot have money to go and buy water. So you have no choice if you are thirsty than to drink the polluted water that is in our well, dug out well. It is now that the cleanup agency, IPREP, is beginning to put water in some communities. The report said it will take 30 years to clean up Ogoni. I don't know how long it will take IPREP to put water in every community in Ogoni, because I know it is bad water and poisonous food, poisonous air that is killing our people the more, especially bad water.
And what do you think is the role of multilateral companies in the current situation? Who do you blame?
I blame the government, I blame the company, because the government is the host to the multinational. So if the government was not corrupt, if the government was serious, if the government care about citizens, the company will do the right thing. They will carry out routine checks on the equipment. They will not allow pollution to destroy our environment and means of livelihood. But because government does not care about us, and government only care about the money that the oil companies are paying into government account and government coffers.
And do you think there's been any progress at all in holding oil companies accountable for past damage?
Well, there have been no progress at all. The only thing is because of this UNEP report on Ogoni that compared them to drop $1 billion for takeoff grant for the cleanup, which the cleanup has just started. It will take 30 years. So they are doing that, they are paying that, but I don't know who will pay for the remaining 25 years, because the first $1 billion is supposed to cater for 5 years. So when that money finishes, I don't know where we will get money from to continue the cleanup, because the government is yet to contribute one dime to that cleanup. And I don't know whether the oil companies will continue to fund the process when the $1 billion is finished. I'm also concerned that Ogoni will not be cleaned until other parts of the Niger Delta are cleaned, because Ogoni is not an island. We have the same river that is tidal. It moves front and back. So it carries pollution from one end and brings to another. So even if you clean Ogoni and there is pollution in neighboring Andoni or Krika, our tidal water can still carry pollution from that place and bring to the Ogoni River that have been cleaned. So there will be need for holistic cleanup of the Niger Delta. And UNEP that conducted environmental audit in Ogoni need to conduct an environmental audit of the entire Niger Delta and let there be a total cleanup before the divestment, because the companies are trying to run away from the liability and the mess that they have generated. Who will take charge of the mess that they have generated? They have to step back to clean it, to fix it up, to remediate the environment, restore the environment to the level they met it before you talk about divestment. A lot of things are wrong here.
And do you think that those things can be corrected in your lifetime?
Well, they can start in my lifetime. It may not be entirely, because it is not a small job to clean up the entire Niger Delta, but let them start. We are insisting that they should start so that we have a better environment we are handing over to the next generation.
We requested an interview with Nigeria's Minister for Petroleum Resources, but we have not had a response. We are happy to feature the government's account of the situation when a response is given. Many thanks to Celestine, Akpobari and journalist Ndume for talking to me. Africa Daily is a BBC World Service production. This episode was produced by Peter Musembi. Our editors are Chakuchanya Harawa and Simon Peaks. Remember to listen out to our sister podcast Focus on Africa, 3 stories, every afternoon from the continent. And if you've got thoughts on today's podcast, you can email us on africadaily@bbc.co.uk or find me on X, formerly known as Twitter. My handle is @Kasujja. And that's with 2 J's. Thank you for listening.